talk to me about.
So, does he recognize the Reformed Jew?
I don't know. You can ask me what I think.
If you know about that, well,
I know how far he can go and how far he can't go.
okay.
But
Yes.
you asked the question. I'm also an Orthodox.
He recognized a Reformed.
Why didn't you ask me?
By whose?
By the standards that the Jew should be met.
Unanimous.
If you want to know something about Judaism, no, you want to know first of all what is the opinion. First of all, I don't pretend to keep what I think. In the name of, I'm in his house. If I don't do it, I'm in a bad shape. Every Jew is entitled to be given the benefit of the doubt. Many times, you see a person doing a lot of things that perhaps, if he were more knowledgeable, he wouldn't be doing. And so therefore, you must understand that you can perhaps strive, not necessarily because he wants to do something improper, just doesn't know better. So this is the observation, first of all. If a person is not knowledgeable, we give him a different understanding of what he is. Different light than if a person would be knowledgeable. If you're knowledgeable and you still don't do the proper thing, that's of course because once knowing what you're supposed to do, still that is not proper. Well, not only an hour, it's a question of it's a person doing something intentionally improper. That's not right. So there's no quarrel with the ordinary reform of it. So Judaism has no quarrel with that person, only to the extent that unfortunately he's not observing the laws because either, and obviously if you're not observing it. So therefore, it is not a question of a person that is born ignorant. This is a natural state. We're all born ignorant. When we're born ignorant. If a person chooses to remain ignorant after many years, then it's no longer understand because obviously you can't live in a functional way that will give some benefits to yourself if you don't become educated. It's like, for instance, a person doesn't go to school, can't read a book, can't do much of anything. You understand? So it is a person's personal responsibility for himself to become educated. In this particular context, he must become educated. What's your question again? What did I answer?
59.
Yes, sir. I'm telling you. The ordinary Jew, I have no quarrel with. Is ignorant, he's ignorant. But that's the state we're all in, more or less. I do have quarrel with the leaders of those movements. They, unfortunately, may in the main also be ignorant. But they are misleading other people, which is a no-no. It's one thing for a person to make a mistake, but another thing to cause that's improper. You understand that concept? And therefore, they are doing things that are not proper, and they have to be condemned for that. Because even an Orthodox rabbi, if he does something improper, I'd be the first to condemn his actions as being improper. When Yaakov Avinu, Jacob, our forefather, was a complete righteous type, and he saw his two sons kill all the whole city because the prince of the city had raped his daughter, Dinah.
The sister of Shimon and Levi.
Yeah.
They
went and they killed the whole city without consulting with their father. And he cursed their anger. He didn't curse them, he cursed their anger. Because it was not proper for them to make such a decision without consulting with him. You understand? In the same fashion, when a person takes upon himself to pervert and misuse the laws of God, this is a tremendous, awesome responsibility. And especially if he leads others astray. And this is where the quarrel is not questioned. Unfortunately, it is not just occasionally, once in a while. It's a norm. It's one thing, well, whatever it is. You understand now? You understand what it is?
So what hope is there for
No,
the future of Judaism?
Mr. Pierce, whatever I said to you, does that sound unreasonable?
No.
This is the position of the halacha.
Halacha means the law.
See, I'm sitting right in God's house. I'm fearful. I'm not going to play games with him. He's all powerful. No place I can run. You understand? I'm telling you, this is the law of God. God does not destroy any of his creatures unless he is forced to do so. He would prefer, if somebody's making mistakes, that they correct their mistakes. We call that Tshuva. And the first thing that a person, before a person can go,
Did you make a mistake?
I don't know if I made a mistake, but I recognize it. Don't assume that because I did it, so therefore automatically it must be stamped kosher. You understand what I'm saying? And this is the obligation of every Jew, to strive to perfect his performance. And what is the Torah trying to teach us? It's not trying to teach us to be religious. Now that's simplistic. It's trying to teach us to be decent. Decent in relation to God, decent in relation to your fellow human being, and decent in relation to yourself. Now who can quarrel with the person striving towards decency?
Right.
You like it?
Yeah.
I'm not talking about religious person now. So the people assume that in order to be a religious Jew, you got to have a beard all the way up to your belly button. Not necessary. It's one of the reasons I don't wear a beard, is the person should not equate hair with religiosity. One thing is not doing the other.
Beautiful.
You understand this?
Yeah.
If I said anything to you up to now that's contrary to what can you fall fault with it? Well, this is what the Torah is teaching us. God takes away all the sham. After 120 years, the Gemara tells us that God asks certain question of every human being that comes up to him. Now, what would you think the first question God would ask him? He's not going to ask him, did you pray every day? Did you go and do this and do that? No. He says, did you do it honestly? That's the first question that concerns God. Honesty. And all this sham about a person getting a big donation and robbing people all through the week, and then he's going to be considered a big-time operator, doesn't go with God. God wants decency from us. If you're not decent, forget it. You're not doing what God wants you to do. You find fault with that?
No.
You're basically, yes, until they're messed up by their leaders.
And Orthodox rabbis and Jews cannot get...
Well, they could, but it's one
You
thing.
ever messed up?
Plenty of times. But
So what
there's a
happened?
difference.
Did God obey
I
you?
remember, would you listen very carefully? I had a case when I was still in Yeshiva, and I met the president of a Reform Temple. And he heard that I was going to Orthodox Yeshiva, so he took me aside, and he says, you Jews, you Orthodox Jews, I can't understand you. I said, what do you mean you can't understand? He says, I got friends that call themselves Orthodox Jews. We go together, we violate the Shabbos, no problem. We go to a trefa restaurant, we eat together. They say they keep it kosher in their house. He says, what kind of a hypocrisy is this whole business here? I said, when you do all these things with them, do you feel any remorse? He said, no, of course not. My sect teaches that as long as you are honest and kind to your fellow human being, that's what's required. I says, when they do these things, they feel a pang of conscience. Yes, and as a result, there's a possibility they might repent, but there will be no possibility that you will repent, because you cannot repent unless you think you did something wrong. You're not to repent doing something. So the first step is clarity. Before you can do anything, you've got to be clear in your own mind what you have been doing. If you've been doing everything right, fine, keep it up. But if God forbid, if it doesn't measure up to the law of God, then there's one of two is going to lead this world, Almighty God or us. Now guess who is going to lead? It doesn't take a genius to figure it out. God's running the world, it's His world. We're here only as long as He permits us to be here. So simple prudence, I'm not talking about religiosity, would dictate that we should become knowledgeable and straighten up and fly. Sound improper. That's it. I must be a good lawyer. So, Mr. Pierce, you find anything wrong with what I said?
No, you're great.
But what?
How do we bring it down to...
Yeah, but
I am teaching Judaism. I'm not teaching about people.
is that I can't place the Shlemi power as...
No. I happen to know I can answer. The big shul,
He's
which
not
is
the
on
big-
Whipple,
Yeah.
that's the one that Shlomo Palmer was involved
But he's not
with.
there.
Yes.
Seaside Street, which is a small place. Very small
I
place.
know that place. Is that the one that Sam Bellows is interested in?
Could be. That I don't know. But a lot of young people are there. Shale bellows. Shale might be.
Mr. Pierce, Herschel, one thing, watch out. I don't know about you. You don't need me to go.
Doesn't that give you a little?
I know, but you got to be a friend of the religion. There's no way in which you can go and fluff off your duties and say all of a sudden, now that you understand it and you buy it, no, now that I bought it, okay, what else you want me to do? You understand? It's got to be a follow through, you know, because unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, God demands more than just mere. You got to have performance only if you're sincere. Knowledge comes later. First, you have to work.
To listen?
I listened.
Here.
I mean, this is the majority of Jews in America are like this. We know it. And this is why this isn't only 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, it's 5 minutes. Probably the Rabbi, in a couple minutes, the Rabbi will come out.
Would you say that American justice is based on Israel's justice?
Sometimes.
It seems
Mostly
like
in
it,
English.
it seems like the ideas.
Some concepts come from the Talmud. Other concepts are not.
They took some of our ideas.
Yes.
Double jeopardy, you heard of that? Not supposed to try a person twice.
That's in the Talmud. We had it 2,000 years ago.
So that's
This is
kind of strange. But no one knows that.
I'll learn it, but you can learn
They're
it
looking
with
at-
somebody else. See how simple it is? This is wonderful about learning Torah. If I teach somebody else, I don't lose. I gain and you gain. Everybody's happy.
I've only got 3 questions so far.
We should. This week's Sedra judges that you're supposed to go and do what is just in the eyes of God. There is a beautiful medrash, Medrash Rabbi, the second medrash, in the Sefer. But before I learn the medrash, I'll learn you a little Mishle, Proverbs. The medrash says that this is found in the 7th chapter of Mishle, but unfortunately this is a printing error. In the 6th chapter.
6th chapter. Okay, so Vav.
What can you do?
Vav. Now,
See, but the printing error, you have to read it right even though it's printed wrong.
It's printed.
Printed
Wrong place to look.
I read it wrong even though it's printed.
All right, now,
This is
I'm
Proverbs.
starting with this.
Mishle is Proverbs.
You must understand,
Book of the Bible.
Proverbs was written, was said, Shlomo HaMelech was written by
King Solomon.
The king, many generations later, was written down the way we have it today. But the book of Proverbs, the way it's translated, makes sense. You have very wonderful sayings. But what it actually means, the hidden meaning, is much more deeper and much more senseful than what is actually translated. And so it is actually allegorical in nature. And you should understand that. So sometime, believe me, if we get around to it, you will learn about that. But the allegorical will be. At any rate, I will loosely translate. Forgive my loose translation of the first
The 6th chapter of Proverbs.
first chapter, the first 6 or 7, maybe even 8 tukim of Proverbs. Beni im orafto re'echo, my son. Now you must understand, this is being a part of Kisvei HaKodesh, the Holy Scripture. This is a prophecy. This is said under the inspiration of prophecy. Everything here is at the dictation of God. And you're never to assume that these are words made up by King Solomon himself. These are his prophecy. And as such, the words are not to be interpreted just simply.
It's words from another man.
Yeah,
Although
no.
Solomon spoke these words, the idea was given into his head to say these words by God. So it's really godly wisdom or information that's being transmitted through the writings or speakings of King Solomon in an allegorical sense.
It says, first of all, literally speaking, this is the first thing, Beni, my son, imo rapta re'echo, if you become a guarantor to your friend. Now, who is your friend? If you would become a guarantor to your friend, how do you become a guarantor to your friend? You accepted the Torah at Mount Sinai, and you repeated the acceptance at the Arpos Moab, the plains of Moab, just before Moshe Rabbeinu dies. If you have already made the commitment already, you are now a guarantor to observe this covenant, this obligation to observe the laws of God. I mean, it's not a question here, if you're asked a question, should you do it or not, you already made the commitment. You're already committed. So kato, and you have kias kaf, is when you shake hands, that binds the deal. In other words, you have sealed the deal. You're not
With
just
a handshake.
You didn't say it. Just you made a firm
Binding of agreement.
a firm commitment. All right. Then it says, then it goes further. That's the first pasuk. The second pasuk says like this: you have sort of been caught or ensnared with the words of your mouth. In other words, you made a commitment already. You can't back out of it. It's already you said, Nasa and Ishma, I will do and I will listen. You committed yourself to God already. It's not a question here that I haven't really made up my mind yet. You made up your mind and you committed yourself. It's like a poetic way of saying you have been trapped by the words of your mouth. In other words, you've already committed yourself. There's no question about that you have a commitment towards.
Once you speak in...
So now the Nabi, the prophet, is giving advice. You've already made this commitment. Now what are you supposed to do in relation to this commitment? Say Zos, do this. Eifo b'ni, if you can, my son. Inatzeo, and you will be saved. Because it's very grim when you start backing down in your commitments with God. God will not allow you to continue backing off of it. Kivoso b'chaf re'achal, since you've already come into the palm of your friend. In other words, you're firmly committed to God. There's no longer any further commitment that you have to make. You've already been committed. And go and humble yourself before Him and submit yourself to your friend. In other words, you're at His mercy. You've made the commitment already. Make the relationship. You're already committed.
Yeah.
And now, Dalit, the fourth passage. Don't put sleep to your eyes. You know, some people, they make a commitment, then they don't follow through on it. But you have no time for wasting your time now. You're already committed. You can't put sleep to your eyes, which no or slumbering to your eyelids. In other words, you no longer have this viable option of being lax, taking it easy. You're already committed. Save yourself like the deer runs away from the hand. In other words, you have to measure up. Otherwise you'll be trapped with your own commitment. And like the bird from the hand of those who wants to trap them and ensnare them. So, what? You have made, as Jews, you have made a commitment to God. To first of all, Rashi says there, what have you made a commitment? First of all, you made a commitment, first of all, that you accept upon yourself at Sinai and also the plains of Moab with all kinds of oaths to watch God's commandments.
The question is that at Sinai, all the people, even the unborn people, our souls were there and accepted the Torah, promised them to live by before we were born. So, at the plains of Moab,
you have committed yourself to God, that He's your friend. God's your friend. Now, that's ridiculous. To alienate your friend, that's ridiculous. You don't have to be your own worst enemy. Yeah, but somebody wants to come in. Accepted it there with all kinds of oaths.
To show that we haven't seen it.
Anyway, but you already made a commitment. So it's like this. Now the fifth sentence. It says on the fifth sentence we talk about Savior like the deer and like now he's coming to the part that will be quoted by the Medrash. I wanted to read the whole thing, the context there.
The aim.
Lake El Namola Otel. Go to the ant. A-N-T. Go to the ant, you lazy one. Come, see its ways and become wise.
Become wise. That's the instruction of all right, through.
Asher ein lo kotzin shoter or Moshe. The ant has no work boss over it to whip it to the proper attitude or a supervisor or anybody ruling over it, and yet it's very industrious. It's doing its thing. It gathers food all the time. It doesn't rest on its laurels. Tochin v'kayitz lachol. It gathers during the summertime its bread. Ogro v'kotzir ma'acholo. And then it gathers in the harvest its food. All right. So this is the parable. Now we're going to the Medrash. You understand that? It's the second Medrash in Seder Shoftim. This says there, go to the ant, you lazy one, and see its ways and become wise. It doesn't have any kind of overseer or supervisor and ruling over it, and prepares in the summertime its bread, and it gathers together in the harvest its food. What did Shlomo see to teach the lazy one from the ant? Our rabbis say this ant has 3 houses, one on top of the other. It has 3 places where it can live. And it doesn't go into the top house because it gets a lot of dampness from a place where
An attic,
an
so
attic.
to speak.
And doesn't go on the very bottom area, a steady level, because it's very, very, what do you call it? It's moist. It's very moist, damp. But it goes in the middle level. In other words, it goes in the derech hamtzoy, in the middle level.
It's moderate.
And it only lives 6 months.
Only the individuals?
In fact, I just asked a question. Because a person, an animal or a living creature that doesn't have any sinews, doesn't have any bones, it will not live more than 6 months. There is a dispute. This Yerushalmi says there are certain types of insects that live 12 months, but they have, although they may not have bones, they have certain sinews and they can live a little longer. But all it lives is just 6 months.
And it's that industrial.
And all its food in its entire life is only 1.5 grains a week or whatever it is. The whole
1.5 grains.
And she goes and gathers in the summertime anything she can find. She goes and gathers. She's industrious. She works hard, much more than she can eat. In one day, she gathers more than she can eat the whole lifetime. You understand? She gathers all kinds of grains, wheat and barley, and lentils. Together, whatever she can gather together. And since it only lives on a grain and a half, a kernel and a grain and a half of grain, what's beating its brain out? Why is she doing so? The ant, in effect, is saying, figuratively to us human beings, perhaps God will make a decree on me that I should live more than I expect, and I have to prepare food. Before the Talmud with the Akiva, he said there was an action there where they found in one of these ant hills, where it was filled with 300 bushels of grain. It was just unbelievable how much grain had been accumulated. That's of course it was bringing from the summertime for the wintertime. Therefore, Shlomo says, go to the ant, lazy one, and see its ways, and be wise. Because the ant has another factor too. The Meforshim tell us, one ant will not steal from another ant. Each one is striving to get as much food as possible, but once one ant takes it, the other ones won't touch it. They'll sniff it, and they'll go rest it from the food that it won't. In a perfect, legitimate, all kinds of wonderful way. See, the ant can answer the question, have you done your activities honestly? So also you can prepare yourself with mitzvahs from this world for the world to come. This is the punchline. And the commentary says, since this is Perish Namar Azov, he says, since Shlomo Melech says with the Holy Spirit, go to the ant, you have to see its ways. Our sages are analyzing all the ways of the ant to let us know it's how it pursues its goal. It doesn't let anything get in the way of its goal. You see, if we would pursue with the same tenaciousness and constancy, and do them right, how much more would we accomplish than just once in a while when the pathetic thing, when you look at it, that this is a ridiculous thing, and the attitude is so ridiculous, it is not fitting to serve God with such a miserly attitude. It's just not fitting, even if there's no reward and punishment attached to it. It's just out of place entirely. Then he goes on to say, just like the ant gathers on things that will actually be necessary after its death, because it's only going to eat a kernel and a half. So also you should gather for yourself after your death.
Isn't it?
You like that? Beautiful. This is our Torah. This is our Torah. So you don't have to go around and be apologetic about our inheritance. It's beautiful. The trouble is, it's a closed book to most Jews. They haven't got the education, and it's a shame. Why shouldn't they get involved? So all you have to do is show up, and we learn this way. Now that I've covered this, any questions on this?
Yes. I would think that some people could say from this that I'm doing my thing. I'm working hard to make a lot of money and have a lot of money because maybe I'll live to 100 years old and I don't want to have to rely on anybody else, my children and everything. So I want to make enough that I should be independent.
I want to ask you a question.
That's what a lot of people are doing.
I want to ask you a question.
So they would think
I
they're
want to ask you a
doing
question.
this.
Where can you earn good health? What bank can you bank good health?
You can't.
What good is it if a person has $100 million and he can't get out of bed?
Yeah.
I mean, the whole concept is fraught with miscalculation.
So
You're
what
making
is
nothing. It's a
futile.
joke. It's a joke.
Yeah.
You're making the assumption that you have the capacity and there will be no
And the
nothing,
year-
and you're going to have the,
Yeah.
and everything is going to work out. I'm not a dog. It doesn't even begin to be right. It doesn't begin to be right. By the time you get wealth together, God forbid you not have is based on a gross miscalculation.
Also in there, it says the only thing the ant uses is 1.5 grains of his life. So
Yeah.
what do you want to amass millions of dollars when all you're going to use
See,
is...
why should a Jew amass such tremendous...
Material.
No, we're talking about spiritual wealth.
Oh, the spiritual...
Because not only should he be concerned
For his children.
for himself, he should be concerned for if he has tremendous spiritual wealth, they can draw on it if they need it. And that is a true righteous person. The person only lives for himself.
That's
and is
selfish.
not careful, not there. That's ridiculous. If you leave an inheritance to your children of spiritual values, of high morality, you leave them greater than if you left them all the money in the world. The money in the world is nothing. It's here today, it can be gone tomorrow. And even if you had it, you couldn't do anything with it. If God doesn't want you to have it. The whole thing, the source is that we're so acclimatized to the society that we live in, and so secularized, we don't appreciate that the values they teach us are fake. They're not true. They're not true values. Good is it if you go and amass great wealth, and in the meantime you lose your everlasting soul? Big deal. So when you got the money, you can't eat the steak. Big deal. You see, the source is a person gets sumished. They say, oh, everybody else is doing the same thing. Look, they can go on vacation. You go on vacation. They get like gypsies. They're never any place more than 1 or 2 weeks, and they're off someplace else. And that's exhausting. They can cut you down. All right, any further questions?
If it has anything to do with it. But the ant from this seems to be a very tenacious, stick-to-it animal. Then why is it said that the dog is the most tenacious?
In certain areas.
Certain areas.
Each one, we're learning a
Dog
parable.
is not a worker.
We're learning a parable. An ant is a very social type. We are living in society. It's no big deal to be a big-time tzaddik if you don't interact with other people.
You're down the hill.
And you live isolated from everybody else. You don't hurt anybody. You don't do any good for anybody either. So good as that. That's religiosity. That's a joke. So people isolate themselves. They want to get spiritual value. That's not what God intended. God intended these spiritual values should make you a better person and hopefully influence others to make them better people. In order that you should be decent. We'll come right back to decency again. You can't become decent if you don't work at it. Because the natural tendency is to be selfish. The natural tendency is that I want mine. Everybody talks nice and everybody says, oh, I'm in favor of this, favor of that. But the Gemara says you can recognize a person's true character. It's like a rhyme. Kos, kis, and kas. When the person is under the influence of liquor, that comes out as true character.
Kos is a cup.
Kos, a cup.
That holds
Kis,
wine or liquor.
when it affects his pocketbook, then you can separate the men. And kas, when he gets angry.
Kas.
But when he gets angry, then his true nature comes out.
He shows what
Yeah,
really feels.
the important thing is that we have to rise to the challenge and be as decent as people can. The only way we can do that is by working on our standards and learning God's Torah to the point that we can act intelligently in the areas in which He's commanded us. And then we have to emulate the ant, work on it constantly, and don't say to yourself, I did a lot of mitzvahs, I take it easy. That's ridiculous. Are you only working for yourself? Even if, let's say, I don't say that that's necessarily so, but let's say that you earn a very high position in the world to come, somehow. That means that you're not supposed to leave anything for your children? What kind of a terrible person are you? That you live a life only for what you want out of it. That's not really serving God. That's serving idols. You're making yourself self-service. All right, now let's go to the Sedra of the week. And you have any shilas, any questions? You leave, if you act in a proper way, you leave spiritual values that only
They
only
see it, they recognize it, they remember.
God will bless them because the ancestor was a righteous type. When an ancestor is a righteous type, God blesses his descendants with this righteousness, so that when they're in a situation where they need help, like you remember, your own mouth, they get the help. You understand? When the chips are down, you don't want any lip service. You want, unless you've been there, you can't realize the frustration, the agony, the true suffering a person goes through because they're frustrated. And the very best way to ensure that you will be blessed and continually be blessed, not only you, but those that you love, is you to go and do the job as well as you can all your life. If you do a very good job, God in turn will do a very good job of blessing you. As I told you, there was another medrash, I told you last week or so, another medrash says, you have something of mine, God says, and I have something of yours. If you take care of what you have of mine, I'll take care of what I have of yours. Now, what have you got of God? You got my Torah. What I got of yours, I got your soul. You take care of my Torah, right? Isn't that beautiful? Well, there's nobody going to complain to God after 120 years and say, you gypped me. I'll gypped you. Let's get the record and let's see what you did. It's much better to have a good record than to go some of it.
It's there.
That's beautiful. Oh, boy.
We learn wonderful things here. So when I tell you I'm speaking to you in the Word of God, I'm talking exactly what I said. I know it sounds strange for a human being to be able to do that, but that's happened. I'm telling you straight. I'm not lying, personally. I'm telling you the evidence. That's even being taped. You know, he can play the record up there. Is this what you say I can do? You're right this time. All right, now what's your question?
My first one is on
somebody else wants to come in?
sentence 20 in chapter 20. 2020.
What? So that's chapter 20?
Yeah, tonight. It's on right now.
What?
Not TV 2020 is a program.
What
Yeah, it's 2020. Shoftim.
With the trees?
He's got the
That
right.
we're about
The trees came
No place to hide.
came later. I know your question, but all
Funny.
right.
I figured like
Sentence 20
Yeah.
in chapter 20. It's
That's what I
about
got.
this third sentence. The third
I'm
sentence.
very happy about the whole
It starts with 18, and on 20 I got 20.
right.
The question is tzedek. Come on, take
20,
it.
20.
That's
Yeah.
not 20.
No, there's only a tree that you know is not a tree of
Yeah, I am.
Sentence 18.
What
Here's
chapter?
19. Here's 20.
What
Tzedek,
chapter?
tzedek. What chapter is this?
Oh, boy.
I'm sorry. I'm in at the very beginning of Shoftim. What?
Well-
I don't know the chapter heading. I don't have it printed.
He's
The
talking
Sedra
to...
starts here. What chapter is this?
What chapter is this?
Yeah. Can
You
you
look
tell
up
me?
there.
He's talking about
That's
Pasuk
fine.
20 in chapter...
Okay.
It's not-
Side.
Tez Zion is 17. Or
There we go.
16. 16.
16.
That's right.
Chapter 16.
16.
20.
20.
See, I knew that you were wrong. See,
All right, good, okay. I
See,
apologize.
he's making mistakes
See,
too.
numbers I'm not used to finding. All right, so
well, that's what we got to
the
get to
third
that point.
sentence in the
Yeah, I
Sedra
gotta-
in English says, translated, justice shall you follow, that you may live and inherit the land which the Lord your God gives to you. My question, what's wrong if there's only one tzedek there? Justice shall you follow, that you may live. Why do we have the tzedek stated twice? Why isn't one sufficient? That's my question.
All right. First of all, Rashi, you got
I did
Rashi.
not read Rashi. I
Well,
did not
Rashi
have
says
time to read it.
That is proper. When you go and ask a question of Dush Halacha, you don't go to a spiritual leader that is not qualified to decide a question. In order to be qualified to decide a question of Dush Halacha, first of all, he's got to be a God-fearing individual. That separates a lot of people right away. And then, in addition to that, he has to be knowledgeable how to learn. He's got to be able to learn the Talmud, because the Talmudic law is what you're deciding on. That means he has to be a judge on questions of Talmudic law. Now that's the primary function of a rabbi. Now obviously, if he's never learned in the yeshiva, the Talmud, to be able to learn it in the original Hebrew and Aramaic, and be able to make intelligence out of it, and to learn the codes that are based on the Talmud, he's certainly a sorry example of a big-time judge on the Talmudic law. So we have a situation where, unfortunately, we have in our day and age many people that are, first of all, not qualified to be on their educational process. And even if they had the educational process, they don't apply it in the proper way because they're not motivated to serve God. They don't fear God.
They can't translate it properly.
No, even if they translate, they mistranslate on purpose. If they are perverted, they mistranslate. They use their own for their own use. As a result, you have a situation arising that these people, that's what I told you before, the conservative reform and the Reconstructionists, so-called spiritual leaders, they almost to a man, they are frauds. They defraud their leaders, their followers, and they misinterpret the Talmud. And not only misinterpret it, those that have learned and are interpreting it correctly choose, for many reasons, monetary and other reasons, to misinterpret. They can catch more people.
Lies.
You pay the temple a big donation. I'll permit you anything. You want to marry a shiksa? You don't want to keep kashrus? You want to keep taras and mishpacha? You want your wife to go to the mikveh? You can do anything you want as long as you don't violate the primary principle. Support your...
I do, so I can get a good salary.
Now, first of all, you have to... This one explanation. Don't assume that we exhaust it by giving an explanation. There are literally thousands of explanations every passage in the Talmud. So I just quoted one, but there are others too. And it says like this: regardless of whether the thing that comes before you, Torah Tamima says, regardless whether it is a very lofty lawsuit, very little lawsuit, you've got to treat it with the same consideration and judge it correctly. You are not permitted to judge it, misjudge it, because according to Jewish law, the Jewish judge is on a very strict accountability to God. If he does something improper and misinterprets the halacha, God will punish him. God forbid, some areas it says about God will even take his life. He's dealing with his own life. So he can't just go around and make a mistake.
Statement's not true.
He's got to do exactly what God wants him to do. And the same thing when I teach God's Torah. I'm handling my own neshama and I'm trying to learn his Torah. And he said, "You're going to treat me nice?"
Would it be improper of me an idea occurred to me just 3 seconds ago, an answer to the tzedek tirdo, that the judge, when he dispenses the justice, he's supposed to take into consideration it should be justice for the plaintiff and justice for the defendant. He has to judge properly to give justice to both sides, and not that justice to one side, that he favors one and everything goes good for one guy and the other one
Absolutely. That
miserably lose. That's my guess.
It brings
Twice.
also
Tzedek.
a minor and peah. It appears the way he says it here, it appears it may be your Shalmi. It says like this: if a person is in very dire straits and he really has to take money for tzedakah, if somehow he can steal himself and not take it, such a person is worthy of being blessed by God. Because he's depending on God, he's not depending on a human
But
being.
does it also say that if you don't take it, you blood's on your hands?
Blood's on your
because
hands, affects himself. And only on a periodical basis, and he can survive with it, obviously. And the same thing applies when a Jewish tribunal decides the question correctly, is blessed by God. And this is, you pursue righteousness. In other words, when you pursue righteousness, you cannot go and take what's coming to you in the first stage. Now, I'm an attorney, I go to court, and sometimes what the people say, the witnesses say, is not the truth. You have to cross-examine them until you get to the real truth. And this is, you have to have developed that skill, cross-examining the witnesses until you get the truth. And this is an art, and you have to work at it. So, all right.
All right, the next sentence
But
I
this
know
does
is
not,
question.
this doesn't, of course, doesn't
But
exhaust.
Sheila can
Wait, excuse me,
go on.
another thing. He says, with Torah Tamima, I quote him. This is a great rabbi that lived from 1860 to 1940. And he was a tremendous scholar, so great, in fact, that he was able to call out from all of the oral law. That's the Babylonian, Sifrit, Sefta, Mechilta, and many of the other Midrashim and everything. And he would put on every passage various quotations, and then in addition to that, he would give his own comment.
He would
And-
first answer it from other books that
Yeah,
known
that-
knowledge, and then he would add his...
That is comments, and his comments are tremendous. And from time to time, I've been, the last 3 or 4 months, I've been using his book more and more. And I'm entranced. This is a man that lived in our time and was such a tremendous genius. It's unbelievable. But it is believable because if you realize that we've had, thanks God, people of that caliber throughout all the ages, these people are not going to mislead you. They're not going to tell you Bobameister. They're going to tell you the way it is, and they're going to go and teach it the way it is. And I had, Baruch Hashem, the great honor and privilege of learning from Talmud scholars here in Chicago, here. So as a result of this, I can say without hesitation that what I teach you is exactly with God's law. I don't have to go and beat around the bush. It's because it is God's law, I can take credit for it. It's God's law, it's not mine. Hopefully, it should become mine. But I don't take credit. Now, it says this. You have a commandment on the Jewish Bezdin to look for as many merits as he can when you're dealing with a capital punishment case. Try to save that Jew some way. Try to figure out a way to save that Jew that's accused of a capital punishment case. As a matter of fact, the Gemara talks about if it was a question of capital punishment, and once in 70 years they passed the death penalty, they were called the killing toll that they could possibly find. You see how the Jewish life is to the Jewish religion beautiful. And anybody that doesn't appreciate that, obviously, he misses the whole thing. He doesn't understand. All right, go further. What's your next question?
Well, I didn't need to ask about Asherah. That's the next sentence. You shouldn't plant an Asherah of any kind of tree beside the altar of the Lord. What is
Asherah?
Asherah?
A tree intended to be worshipped as idol worship. And this is talking about, according to Chazal, talking about you're not supposed to plant it on the Har HaBayis, or the Temple Mount, where we have the basic...
You mean the Goyim had a certain tree that they used
to
to...
worship. You're supposed to avoid...
A certain one?
Even though you're not going to worship
Yeah.
the tree, you got to be careful not to plant.
How come yours keeps going off and mine keeps going? It's both 60 minutes.
Any more questions? Yeah. The next sentence, the one after that, it says, neither shall you set up a pillar which the Lord thy God hateth. Now, in Hebrew, matzeva, Asher.
Yes.
All right. I shouldn't be making the comment myself, but everyone knows what a matzeva is. You know what a matzeva is?
What is
Is a memorial stone that's put on the grave.